All right, we're at Cassandra Summit 2014 Europe, and welcome, Gary.
Hi.
So, why don't you tell us about yourself, where you work?
My name is Gary Stewart. I'm working at ING in the Netherlands, and backend developer and database experience. Well, I tend to have a love-hate relationship with Cassandra, but it's starting to become more of a love relationship. In the beginning, it was hate. So that's
look at you. Okay, so we got a little hate. So tell me about your experience with Cassandra, like early on. What did you not like about Cassandra?
Not being able to join tables. I mean, it's really sort of, you start with a database and you think you're used to it, you know database. And Cassandra has CQL3, so it looks and smells like SQL.
Right.
But once you start getting past the underlying NoSQL limitations, and you're getting availability and scalability in return, but you need to give up some other stuff. And when you give up the other stuff and you start understanding that, then you know why you're doing it. So you have to spend a bit more time developing and a bit less time in operations. That's
what kind of databases did you use before you used Cassandra?
SQL Server.
Okay.
As well.
So relational databases.
Relational.
Did you ever use a mainframe?
Yes.
Because we talked to Chris earlier, and he said he used a mainframe. Okay, so see, those are still out there, right?
That's one of the potential use cases for Cassandra. We need to have scalability at the fingertips, and also availability, because we are experiencing outages, and with a single instance, customers are affected.
Right.
And we take that very seriously. So we're really now exploring many different ways of solving this problem. And Cassandra, being masterless, is designed to tolerate failure, which is why we think it's a good use case.
Right.
A good product for our use case.
So your talk today here at the summit, you're going to be talking about consistency challenges. So maybe talk about one of the ways you solve some of those issues for what your use cases are.
Yeah.
So what do you use? What techniques do you use?
Well, there's a couple of challenges with distributed systems. The first one that we mentioned is about time differences, because when you have different machines, you run the risk of having out of sync times. And if you have to make decisions based on time, then if it's out of sync, then you run into some weird scenarios. So we've managed to solve that by using a finite state machine and essentially ignoring time. There's another challenge is that because it's distributed, you don't have transactions. So when you throw a request out and you get a timeout, you don't know if it's out there or if it's not. So essentially the client and the nodes can be out of sync. So we've solved that again with a finite state machine, idempotent data modeling, and knowing our critical paths. So there's a lot of little attention to details that you need to pay attention to, and we talk about that in the presentation.
Well, I tell people to look at your presentation often because it is very, it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And it's nice that you don't have to give up those things like availability.
Yeah.
And so there's other ways to fix it. So let's switch gears a little bit. You do a lot of talking in community. Remember, we did a meetup together.
Yes, that's right.
So tell me about your involvement in the community, and what do you think about the Cassandra community?
Chris and I in the Netherlands, we took over the Cassandra community. I think it was done by eBuddy before then. And ING wanted to also start promoting engineering culture and basically making a sort of contribution to the community.
Right.
So me and Chris took this opportunity to host a couple of meetups.
Right.
And it's been fantastic. We're getting international speakers. The turnout is great. The community is now, I think, 346 members.
Wow.
When we started, it was 120. So since last year, it's grown more than 2.5 times.
Yeah, there's a lot of Cassandra in the Netherlands now, isn't there?
And that's one of maybe the downside of Cassandra is there's not a lot of skills on the market. So this is the reason for the community. We're really trying to make an awareness and get other people interested. Because the more people using the product, the better it is for us and the better it is for Cassandra. And then we can all proceed in the right direction.
So at ING, is there a lot of people, or is there centralized, or is there a central group that does Cassandra work, or is it pretty distributed of people who use Cassandra?
There are many teams. We're into DevOps, so we have I think over 150 Scrum teams. So that can be quite challenging. What we're trying to do now is gather all the knowledge in one place so we can get the best practices and try to keep it in a community way so that we also within the company have a nice way of working together and then take it forward so that we share the knowledges. And
there's quite a big project right now. I remember seeing one of your CIOs that talked about some integrations and things like that. So there's a lot of DevOps work being done there, and Docker as well, right?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So what was the project? I can't remember the name of it.
The project is a Darwin project.
Darwin.
And
is it an evolution?
Sorry?
Is it an evolution?
Well, it's the first step to the new bank, Resilient Bank. There we want to essentially break the front-facing services from the back end so that we can reduce the load and ensure availability. Right. But the challenge we have is the consistency, and that's what we talk about in our
presentation. Exactly. And it goes to prove you don't have to be a startup to use Cassandra.
No.
When was ING a startup? What year was that?
ING was a startup.
Yeah, what?
About 100 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was longer than that, wasn't it? I remember we were talking once, and part of the U.S. purchase was financed by ING, and that was in the 1700s. So
wow,
it's been around for a long time.
That's a really long time.
It's amazing. You don't have to be a startup, right? Been around for hundreds of years. Great. Well, thank you very much for coming down here and talking to me, and thank you for coming to the summit and doing a talk.
You're welcome. Thank you.